to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exie and I'm your host. Journey with me through Africa's vast variety of culture, heritage, and discuss issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure you add this podcast to your frequent podcast rotations, and don't forget to share and follow this podcast. Hello guys, and thank you so much for tuning into African Teapot for yet another episode. And today, or for this week's episode, the title is Charity and Africa. And before I get into anything or into our proverb, just a quick mental check. How far? As for me, I'm doing fine, and I think I'm gradually warming up to that holiday spirit. This year, I really didn't warm up to it. I think just because of how trying the year has been and how very unprecedented things have been this year. I think that might be why I was feeling that way. But after Thanksgiving, gradually it's been creeping up on me. And hopefully I get there. I get to experience and enjoy it the same way I've always enjoyed. Or who knows? Maybe I'm just going to enjoy it differently this year. Who knows, right? But before I get enough about me, guys. But let me get into our proverb that ties with today's topic. So the proverb says, give without remembering and take without forgetting. And I think it's a very powerful African proverb. Not African proverb, but just proverb, period. When you're talking about remembering and forgetting, when you're talking in terms of giving to someone or receiving, I think there are lessons that we tend to forget as human beings, as we go through life. And take for example, like this year, you're going through things, it's hard talking about forgetting, right? But I thought, since it's the period where we talk about a lot of gift sharing, giving back and things like that, why don't we look at Africa? And if you take note, I didn't say charity in Africa. I said charity and Africa. Because when you talk about Africa and charity, there are so many different interpretations, as I realized when I posted this on social media. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the narrative that I thought about or I was discussing with a friend, hence the birth of this episode, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and get into that. Okay, guys, so I was discussing with a friend. We were talking about a lady that she works with, and she was just talking about the hypocrisy in people wanting or putting it on social media or sharing with their communities how great of people they are in terms of, I gave back to the community. I bought bikes or this for someone, so I am an amazing person. And she was talking about this specific family that she works and knows. She walked in there when the mom was trying to get the kids to take the bikes and give these bikes to to a family that didn't have, obviously. And the kids didn't quite understand the concept, and were asking their mother, why are we doing this? And the mother was using words like, because the family is less privileged than we are, so we have to give. The kids don't have bikes, so you need to go and give it to them. And at the end of the day, her kids didn't quite understand why it's their responsibility. Why should I care, right? And she didn't do good of a job to explain this to the kids, rather than just telling the kids, you ought to because they don't have, right? You need to understand when and when you're talking to kids, you need to speak in a way they relate to what you're saying, because so many people don't have. Why have you chosen just that family to give to? Do you understand? There are so many things kids don't quite understand, and if you're not patient enough to tell them, they won't understand it. And when I was talking to my friend, one of the things that we talked about was sometimes the parents, they themselves don't know why they're doing what they're doing. So it's more or less like, I'm doing it because it's going to make me look good in the society for doing it. So you make it's cuter. It's going to get more likes. It's going to get more conversation if your kid is just an amazing thinker and sharer and giver at a young age. So you put it on the kids. You project it like your kids choose to do that. No. It's okay for kids to think selfishly, because kids sometimes tend to do. We all did that. Where a kid, you have your chocolate, you don't want to share. And it had to take a lot of teaching, coaching, for you to understand that there is something that you gain when you share with someone, which is not material, right? You have to teach your kids that. You have to make people understand that. So in the midst of that conversation, we went into Africa because, hey, we're all about African culture, right? But we talked about this, and this is something that sometimes I think we Africans don't remember, or we are not conscious of. We are taught from a very young age that you share what you have. We are not necessarily taught for you to give what you have, because we are made to understand that one person can have it all. So you can't just be in the position where you're just giving things out. We are taught that you share what you have. So even if I give you the pencil and I never ask for it, I see it like I've shared my pencil with you. I have shared with you, right? And that is a connectivity thing. That is a community thing or aspect that I think the world today lacks, especially in the Western world. People do not make an effort to connect with people. They just do things because my parents did it. I've seen people do it. It's trending, so I just do it, right? But if Africans listening to me know this, you would understand what I'm saying. When you share with someone, it's the best feeling ever. We are taught that if you have a loaf of bread, share with someone, versus I must have 2 loaves of bread before I, share with someone. And for us, we don't consider you giving. I've not given you my house. I gave you my house. The word give is not just giving away. It's give, but we see it as sharing. Hopefully this is making sense to someone who is listening and is probably wondering what's going on with Africans. But we give, true, things to people, but that spirit of sharing has to be there. There has to be that connect with someone. And I think we Africans just move around feeling like that. We just move around connecting. When you meet it, that's why when I got here, it was a little bit odd walking on the street and not saying hello, because we come from a culture where you say hello to strangers. A stranger will stop you and ask you why you didn't say hi to them, and you better have an answer. That's the culture we have. So in the midst of talking about this and discussing, sharing and exchanging texts with different people throughout the week, there are certain aspects that came up in the conversation, and I thought maybe I should just share it with you guys, right? One was give because you want to, not because you have to. I think that explains that in itself. Another point is love yourself and others before material gifts. So, which is what I'm saying. The connect is way more important than just giving someone something because you just want to give them that thing for them to shut up, or give it to them so they can stop bothering you, or give it to them so that everyone can see that you're a kind person. There is a difference. Another point is be kind to your neighbor. And when I say neighbor, neighbor starts with your roommate, neighbor starts with your mom, starts with your dad, with your sister. If you can be kind to people around you, you can be polite to people around you, you can buy 10,000 bikes and give it to a village in Africa or in Indonesia or Haiti. It's not going to change that the people that are around you don't feel happy being around you. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's what that point is all about. Another point is don't be boastful about giving, which is what resonates throughout, this discuss, is if you're giving something because you can't wait to tell somebody that you did, or you can't wait to post it so that people know you did, something is wrong with that. It's more about you than who you're giving it to. And that is not what giving and sharing is about. If someone told you that's what it's about, you are in the wrong field, or you are just in the wrong place doing the wrong thing, right? One other point is giving is different from humility. And I would say this, humility is a quality that is rare, and it's a quality that most people that are humble or have this aspect don't know they do. So if you're aware and you're moving around saying, I am a humble person, you're most likely not that humble, because it's a quality that you don't say it to yourself. Someone says it about you. Someone notices. That's one of the values or qualities that is so it's so admirable when you find it in someone, because most often than not, they are not aware that they have it or they possess that. Another aspect or point is giving doesn't replace bad character. True, simply because I gave a pair of shoes to my friend doesn't change the fact that I was extremely rude to my mom yesterday, or I am not respectful of my mom, or I don't love my husband, or I don't support my kids. It's totally different from, I gave a pair of shoes to my best friend. Like, there's just a difference about it. So giving is something that sometimes I think we need to be very careful in terms of saying that we are charitable, right? Anyways, another point is give not because you are better at the person you're giving to, but because you're opportune than the person you're sharing with. So I think that caps, and that's the summary of it all. I give to you, or I share to you because we are both human, and I feel you should have a taste of what I have because I am so blessed to have it. That is what sharing is about. So when I tell you I'm from Africa, please and please again, don't try to relate to me by telling me how many Bibles you sent to a church in Africa last December, or how many children you fed through a certain charity group, so that I should see you like a nice person. I didn't think you were a bad person when I met you, but I think there's something creepy and wrong with you telling me how charitable you are to different people from my continent to make me relate with you, right? A kind person's kindness, you feel it without them necessarily even giving you anything, right? They can give to someone else and you say it, I will figure out you are kind. I will figure out you are humble. I would figure out you're a great person. I would figure that out every day that I talk to you. I'll figure that out through how you interact with me, how much you listen to my problems, how you relate to my problems. Those qualities are going to come out of you. You don't need to be involved in feeding someone, in giving someone bites for me to see that. So sometimes the charity that people move around posting and talking about and doing in Africa is not about sharing with me in Africa. It's not about the 2 cents you send to some kid that you don't know in Africa to validate something that is missing in your life. That is not what Africa is. And I'm going to say this on here, and it's on record. Simply because someone you're speaking to comes from Africa doesn't mean that person is looking for something from you. Doesn't mean that person is asking for charity. Because sometimes that's what happens. Simply because I'm from Africa, you go to visit someone, they start showing you the pots and pans they have to give you. They start asking you if you can give it to your grandma in the village and things like that. There is a difference between us coming from a continent that lacks a lot, that is having bad governance from their governments, and they lack proper health care, they lack proper feeding and stuff. There is just a difference between that and being a charitable case. Because Africans will tell you, we Africans are very hospitable. If you leave today and you go and visit anybody in their African home back in Africa, they would give you the best meal they have for the day. They would give you the best beds to sleep on. They would play the best music for you. They would take off work for you. Because we have that spirit of sharing, even in the little we have. It's not about how much bicycles you're giving us, how much 50-cent meals you pay at the end of the month behind your computer that makes us feel like you want to help us. There is a lot that goes in Africa which has to do with governance, which has to do with exploitation. It's not about the food. The food is the immediate symptom of what the problems are. And if you can't relate to why I tend to suffer the way I suffer, or I tend to lack the way I lack, and you just feel like giving me crumbs is a solution and makes you feel better, then something is wrong with that charity. And that's why I said charity and Africa. Africa is not a charity case. Africa is not a place where we just sit and we're just waiting for crumbs before we can eat or feed, or waiting for crumbs before we can become our own people. That is not who Africa is. That is not who Africans are. That is not who Africa wants to be. Hopefully this gives light on that. And when you choose to share with somebody coming from Africa, or you choose to share with anybody, you need to think deep within yourself why you're doing it, and you do it. Don't do it just because you want to do it. You understand? And there is a difference between giving somebody luxury when that person can afford the basic necessities. There is also something wrong with that. And there is a difference between simply because you hear the word Africa, you think that person doesn't have and that person is out to exploit you. That is not how we are. If you are choosing to give me something, then I can't be exploiting you for it, right? Because you're choosing to give. That is why, again, the saying says, give without remembering and take without forgetting, right? We are always grateful for what we receive. That's how we are raised. But that doesn't mean that we just sit there waiting for you to give us before we survive. We are trying to survive. We've been surviving and we'll continue to survive. And hopefully this sheds a lot of light on charity and Africa and charity in general. And this was the narrative that I chose to talk about, and I'm not going to go past this. I'm just going to leave it here, and we'll just pick up next week with another topic. And just, let me know what you think. Let me know what you feel as an African listening to this, or someone who gives to communities in Africa, how you thought before and how you think now after you've listened to me say this, right? But like I said, it is the season, and we are grateful for you even thinking about us. We are. If you're giving back to any African community, kudos to you, and we are grateful. We are just talking about people taking advantage of this culture of gift giving and sharing, right? We're just talking about those taking advantage of it, right? Okay, guys, I'll just drop here, and I'll see you guys next week for another episode. Thank you for listening, and hope you join me for the next episode. You can always reach us via email at africanteapot@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at african_teapot.